Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. Well, happy Friday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on the Brian Nichols Show. Hope you're getting ready for the weekend. I am, as always, your humble host. And today we turn the door for another fun-filled episode. Today we are having a returning guest. He's a good friend of ours, part of the Brian Nichols Show family. You know him, you love him, the one and only Kenny Cody. Welcome back to the Brian Nichols Show.
Hey, Brian. How are you, brother?
Doing good, my friend. Doing good. Good to see you. I know it's been a little bit since we last had you in the program. We've both been a little busy, to say the least. You're back in person teaching school, which I think I know a lot of parents are excited about. Now, I will say you're in Tennessee, right? So we're seeing a little bit, maybe a different approach to the government schools, the public schools that we'd see, I don't know, in Philadelphia, where I was just spending the past 7 years. So how have things been, Kenny Cody?
Been back to normal. I was telling my friend she's actually visiting from D.C. this week, and she lives in D.C. and all the mandates and everything are still in place. And I'm saying we've been back to normal since about the start of the school year in August. There's been no restrictions or anything like that. The Tennessee legislator knows that authoritarian mandates kind of kept us locked down for too long, and we're back. We've been back to normal for almost a year. So
there you go. Well, I just recently moved out to Indiana. The audience has heard this story many a time over the past 4 months because it was the best decision I probably made in the past 10 years. And when you look at Philadelphia, they were the only city to consider and then actually implement the mask mandate once again here just this past week. And guess what? They went not even a week, and they already have turned it back, and they removed the mask mandate. And I think that the biggest visual, now we're recording here obviously on Friday, there was a Philadelphia 76ers game that was taking place. And this is just after the mask mandate went back into place. And you look at the Wells Fargo Center where the 76ers play, maybe, like 100, 200 people wearing masks. It's over. It's the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where Matthew Broderick walks up and he goes, "You're still here? Go home. It's over." That's COVID. And yet we still see, Kenny, you got like Anthony Fauci, who's coming out saying, "Well, you got to go ahead and you got to listen to the CDC." It's like, I don't know why I made a little Bernie Sanders there too. But like, it's over. This time of COVID, this time of constant fear porn, it's not, people aren't buying what they were selling there for the past 2 years. And, seeing, like, to your point, things back to normal, God, it's refreshing.
It is. I mean, especially seeing the kids happy and seeing the students happy is a great thing. It's funny to me. I think that Fauci is just one of the most outlandish things just to get back on television because he's not been on so long. Saying the CDC, and the best comment, and tells me everything I need to know about him, is when he said, "If you question Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're criticizing Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're criticizing science itself."
The science.
So that tells me everything I need to know. He just wants to be back in the spotlight again.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the power too, right? This is going to be the overarching theme as we move out of this, is once the power is given, it's very, very difficult to take away. And we're seeing right now in the repeal of the CDC mask mandate by the Florida judge down there earlier this week, and just the people across the United States outrageously excited about this, videos going galore, people ripping their masks off and celebrating on airplanes. And yet the Biden administration is actually they're appealing this decision by the Florida judge, and they're arguing it's for the CDC and in future circumstances to be able to maintain this power and the authority. And it kind of strikes you, oh, this isn't about keeping people safe or avoiding illness. It's about control. It's about power.
Mm-hmm. And that's just the truth. I mean, the fact that they are living up to a government agency that has really no restricted power and just gives out recommendations anyway. I mean, the CDC has no purpose besides to do research and then provide state governments, local governments, and the federal government on policies to create. The CDC has no governing power. So the fact that the Biden administration automatically goes to, we need to listen, and this is for the CDC, we need to listen to the CDC, or whatever, I don't really understand the argumentation. They're not a governing body. They're not the Department of Health. They're not the Tennessee Department of Health. They're not the Pennsylvania Department of Health. They are a recommendation-based government agency. So to say that we need to leave it up to the CDC really just shows how much control the federal government and this administration wants to give the federal government. They want to go back. If it was up to them, they would fearmonger the American public back into their homes. They would probably push for, mail-in voting, early voting, things like that. Just so that they're going to have a chance in the 2022 elections. That fear-mongering, send people back home, don't let people be participative, don't let people be aware, and keep, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. They want to do that to the American public, and they don't want to hear the evil that the federal government's actually spouting still. They want to hold on to every opportunity they can get, because they know that's the only reason that they can win, is to make everybody fearmonger the American public, make sure everybody is in fear. If you give the Republicans back the House or the presidency or the Senate, then we're going to go back and we're going to go into COVID again. So it's entertaining to me to see them hanging on to the very last threads of their only political hope.
Yup. Well, and this is why it's so important, right? When we go to the voting booth and we present candidates for the voters to choose in said voting booth, that we're presenting not just candidates, but good candidates, the right candidates. And right. You just wrote an article over at Newsmax, and we're going to go ahead and quickly run through this. It was Walker Oz exemplify the rise of celebrity conservatism. Now you're referring to Herschel Walker, who I appreciate more as a Dallas Cowboys fan for helping us essentially lay the foundation and groundwork for the 90s Super Bowls that we have won, and has been the only real thing that we can put in our cap for anything over the past 25 years. He was traded to the Minnesota Vikings, in which the Vikings gave up, I think it was like pretty much 2 drafts worth of picks. He is now running for U.S. Senate in Georgia. And then you mentioned Dr. Oz, right? Everybody's favorite doctor. And he is now running for Senate in U.S. Senate, that is, in Pennsylvania. But Kenny, you're a little concerned, because are they really principled conservatives or liberty advocates, or are they more so taking advantage of, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, the popularity suddenly of being more in the liberty / right of center camp?
It was interesting. So Herschel Walker was always, from what I've always looked at his political activism, he's always been a Republican, right? I mean, he endorsed Donald Trump. He spoke at the 2020 RNC. He has always been a Republican, has always leaned to the right of social conservative issues, of fiscally conservative issues, and things like that. So he's always been a pretty secure conservative in those kind of terms. So I'm not really nervous about Mr. Walker. I think a lot of people's concerns were the concerns of Dr. Oz, who's been a Hollywood conservative, a Hollywood doctor, had a show on primetime television for so many years. So I was a little bit concerned when I heard about him at first, but looked into him. And to be quite honest, it's really strange. In Pennsylvania, it's sort of a moderate state, right? I mean, Pat Toomey is the current senator now. He's, of course, retiring. And John Fetterman is a far-left socialist who is running for the Democratic nomination for the Senate, is more than likely going to win. He's the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. And then you have Dr. Oz, and I think that he is actually going to be a very, very good senator. I'm not really sure as of yet. I think he's the best option at this point, especially in comparison to Dave McCormick, who he's running against in the primary, who has been a very much of a neocon foreign policy-wise, very liberally conservative, very liberal fiscally. And he's very concerning to me. So if anything, I would be for Dr. Oz, sort of because Dave McCormick is so bad, and he would win if Dr. Oz didn't get the Trump endorsement and didn't win the primary. But from when I've looked at his campaign, it's really a blank slate campaign, because the dude has always, donated to Republicans, been very involved in the conservative movement in terms of fundraising and giving money to Republican candidates. While he shared some kind of questionable beliefs on television and in the public because of him being in Hollywood, I think Trump saw something in him that was very similar to himself, where he had, kind of expressed sort of these progressive-leaning social viewpoints because he was in Hollywood and because he was on television and things like that. But Dr. Oz seems to be running one of the most Liberty Center campaigns, one of the most America First campaigns in the entire country, which is really strange to me in a sort, like I said, a moderate state, a swing state like Pennsylvania, who is kind of, I think they have a Democratic governor, and a Democratic senator besides Pat Toomey. It's kind of strange, but I think that the Oz is the best option for that state because of the candidate he has presented himself as. Now, we could go in, and if he wins, he'd go in and be one of the worst senators. He could be another Mitt Romney. He could be another Susan Collins. For all that I know, I don't know that right now. But right now, what he is running on his campaign, at least his campaign, the way he is campaigning to the voters of Pennsylvania, he seems to be a sort of a liberty-leaning, America First conservative. And I think that's what Pennsylvania needs right now, especially to replace sort of a kind of a weak moderate like Pat Toomey. I think that Oz would be 10 times better than Pat Toomey, and he would definitely be better than Dave McCormick, and 100 times be better than John Fetterman. So to me, I think Trump made the right endorsement here. In both cases, he also endorsed Walker. The reason that I wrote this article about celebrity conservatism is for so long, the Democrat Party has basically capitalized on the idea that Hollywood helps them, fundraise. Hollywood and TV and celebrities help them promote their party. And now conservatives are starting to get that wing of Hollywood, right? Like with Trump, with Herschel Walker, with Dr. Oz, three of the most recognizable names in the American public. You're hitting all areas. You're hitting reality television, you're hitting primetime television, and you're hitting American sports with those three candidates, with those three people that are involved in the Republican Party now. So I think we really have to look at how much we can capitalize on Republicans and people who are sort of celebrities but are kind of ready to come out of their shell. Right, because Hollywood and the left has ostracized celebrities that sort of had these left-leaning tendencies, like people like Kelsey Grammer and others. That the guy like that, I think it's Anthony Sabato or Anthony Sabato, whatever his name is. People who have been ostracized. Dean Cain is another one that have been ostracized for their conservative belief systems, and now you're having these two very well known, like you said about Herschel Walker with the Dallas Cowboys, and Dr. Oz being on prime time, America's favorite doctor. Those two people are now running as Republicans with R's next to their name on ballots that are statewide in two, I guess you would call them swing states. One's running against incumbent, one's running for an open seat. And I think that idea and that sort of shift in the Republican Party's direction is a good thing, because you're kind of making people come out of the shell not ashamed to be conservatives anymore.
I'm cautiously optimistic, right? Because I will say this has this moment of very Tea Party feeling, like 2008, 2009 feel, when you could just tell that there was a large faction of Republicans who were just sick and tired. But it seems that COVID has really made it easy to be pro-liberty. Like I don't mean to make the war analogy, but like the battle lines have been drawn. You were either in favor of all the COVID mandates, the COVID regulations, the lockdowns, the masking, the forced vax, all that from the beginning, or not necessarily the beginning, but that was the camp that you ended up siding on, or the camp that, hey, this maybe didn't have to go this way, and it didn't have to be this way. If you saw, South by Southwest canceling their events before any government mandate comes in, maybe it's showing that the private sector was going to be able to respond to this and not need that one centralized approach to dealing with COVID. And I guess maybe there's another camp, right? And it was those pretty much from the beginning who were like, red flag. There seems to be a lot of things here that aren't adding up, and we need to be very, very cautious. But going back to my point, now all of a sudden you're finding a lot of people kind of in that 2/3 camp of people who either were a little, hey, I'll do what I gotta do for the 2 weeks to slow the spread, up until you saw what seemed to be the solution, that was the vaccines. And now we're seeing that the vaccines maybe weren't as effective as they were promised or sold to be. And now we're at a point where COVID's pretty much normal. It's going to be part of our society going forward. It's much more transmissible and much, much less deadly than the original variant was back in March 2020. So the fact that we're seeing right now people being able to kind of identify with one of those two camps primarily, I would say it makes it a lot easier for folks like Dr. Oz or Herschel Walker. And this is the other part that blew me away. I saw a recent interview. I forget who it was that was being interviewed, but one of the top GOP pollsters out there. And of the top candidates right now for 2024, so Trump, obviously, Ron DeSantis, obviously, and then the other names that were shocking and kind of catch you off guard: Tim Scott, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And this right here, Kenny, goes to kind of this rise of the celebrity conservatism. Now, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he endorsed Biden and Harris back in 2020, right? Herschel Walker, to your point, endorsed Trump. Now, does that make somebody necessarily a strong conservative or a strong progressive or a strong squishy moderate centrist? That's not the argument, I would say. But more so, I guess going back to my original concern, do you see a possible issue here where now, because it is sexy, right, to be able to go and be, I'm anti-lockdowns, I'm pro-freedom. Heck, you even have the Democrat Florida gubernatorial candidate who's basically touting that, hey, now it's time to move forward. So yeah, it's over. But is there a concern that some of these celebrities who are seeing now that this could be an avenue to go down could maybe pretend, or I don't know, act like they are pro-liberty, pro-freedom, but once they get into office, show their colors to be entirely opposite?
Yeah, that's absolutely a concern, and I'm waiting to see. I think Oz is going to be a good example because I'm not afraid of Walker at all. I'm not afraid of Walker, and I'm not afraid of Oz either. But somebody who has kind of expressed some things in the past, who has never been very outspoken about political issues with Oz. I mean, he's said some, progressive things on television, try to get views and try to get guests on his show and stuff like that. And I get it. Trump did the same thing. But I'm interested to see if he wins, how he governs. That's absolutely a concern. I'm for him right now. I'm for him absolutely right now. That piece was basically that piece was basically an endorsement of Walker and Oz because I want to see how they govern, and I think they're the two best candidates for their states. But I would be very interested to see, especially how Oz governs, and I have faith that he will. One person also that you kind of see it fail, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Trump endorsement helps, or if it helps at all, is going to be JD Vance in Ohio, who is a sort of I would say a minor celebrity, authoring the book Hillbilly Elegy, which I despise. Running in Ohio, the only reason he got famous is because he made millions off Appalachians' backs. He's running for the Republican nomination in Ohio, so I'll be really interested to see how much that celebrity succeeds. I think Oz and Walker have a much better chance to win their primaries and to win their elections than Vance does. Vance probably wins against Tim Ryan if he gets nominated, but it'll be interesting to see if the actual endorsement and his celebrity helps him get through the primary. But I'm just going to have to see how they govern. I can never make a definite statement on how anybody's going to govern. Your question and your somewhat pessimistic view of what might happen and if they're just capitalizing to further their own careers is a very, very high concern. I completely understand it completely. I just think for now, when you have somebody like Fetterman running in Pennsylvania, and then you have Walker running against Warnock, I think either of those options are Oz or Walker are better in those areas, especially if you're McCormick and you are running, I say, a neocon sort of traditionalist conservative campaign, which I'm traditional establishment campaign that I'm traditionally against. I'm for both of those candidates right now, but I've had plenty of disappointments among politicians in my life. I've been for politicians and watched politicians for a long time, and as my ideology progresses and my ideology kind of grows, there's been people that I've shut out, and politicians that I've shut out myself after I've seen them govern and seen them take office. So that's a very, very high possibility that they disappoint, and I would not be surprised if they disappoint. But for now, I think these two candidates are ideal for their states.
Kenny, I'll give you a real life example / story, right? I remember young little Brian back in 2012, 2011, somewhere in there. I was at CPAC, and there was a young up and coming senator. You might know him, Senator Marco Rubio. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, he had just given the State of the Union response to Barack Obama. And in that State of the Union response, he made the infamous, he reaches for the water and takes a big sip of water, right? So playing to that, and obviously a little tongue-in-cheek, at CPAC, he did a giveaway. And the giveaway was a water bottle for Marco Rubio. Well, guess who won? Yours truly.
Really?
I know. And he signed it. It said, "Stay thirsty for liberty, Marco Rubio." And fast forward 10 years, now you and I sitting here, and me being in the position I am, talking to the tens of thousands of listeners we have, the Brian Nichols Show, and you obviously leading Cott County GOP and talking to a lot of the liberty movers and shakers in the GOP. Would we both say that Marco Rubio is a strong liberty ally? No. Right. And I guess it's because I've had my heart broken that I am not necessarily pessimistic. I'll push back on that word a little bit. I am more a little cautious, right, on in endorsing necessarily, but more so I will take the wins and take the people who are going to be allied with our way of doing things.
Sure.
Definitely I'll take that. But then, and let's kind of turn this, because let's go to actually Marco Rubio's state right now, where he is U.S. Senator. We're seeing issues right now in Florida where you have this so-called the "Don't Say Gay" bill, right, down in Florida, that was being pushed there in Florida. And then Disney goes out and based on the push in the market from mostly liberal progressives from cities outside of Florida, said you need to get involved, you need to take a stand. And what Disney do? They bent the knee, they took a stand against the bill, and now you're seeing in response Florida getting rid of a lot of the special privileges that Disney has been taking advantage of for, I think, from the 60s or so, somewhere in there, where basically they can serve as their own self-autonomized government, more or less, as a corporation. Now, us in Libertopia are like, oh, Disney had that, and where can we sign up? But then you see right now it's happening with DeSantis and the Republicans down in Florida, where they're revoking that special privilege. So you can see where there is some non-liberty actions being taken by government officials in the name of preserving liberty. I think that's the argument. And I guess I'm a little concerned. I see, and I actually talked about this over on Tim Pool, I see why it's important for us to play offense and fight back. But are we playing a dangerous game? And we talked about this with Trump and our liberal friends who screeched back in 2016. Well, you're upset because Trump has been able to build up Trump has been able to use the power built up by Obama. Fast forward to 2020. The same thing happens with Biden now, and the actions that were taken under the Trump administration, being able to use those. So you see that, okay, let's say that this is something that DeSantis does, and it's that in a way that we want to be used. Let's say 10 years from now, Florida all of a sudden flips back to a blue haven for whatever reason. And now all of a sudden you have a Democratic governor and they're going to use those same powers. Is that a dangerous precedent for us to be focusing on and possibly set?
It really depends. It's very strange to me that there is this idea of a corporatist mindset that libertarians disagree with right now, and I think Let Disney Be an Example was a good article by Rich Larry that I gave credit to and retweeted. It's a very complicated issue, and I see the libertarian criticisms, and I also see the reasoning. It's very strange that the thing about the Disney Corporation is they worked on behest of the Florida government for a long time. It's the reason that DeSantis got criticized a few months ago for leaving. I forget which bill it was. I think it may have been like a free speech bill or something like that. And he left. He made sure to include, or the Florida legislature made sure to include, theme parks and things like that to get left out. So the problem with criticizing the idea of taking these special privileges away is because Disney acted on behalf of the Florida government for a long time. They were basically a branch off the Florida government, even though they're on their own self-autonomous state. They're their own county. They're their own government and things like that. The reason they were given these special privileges because of what they gave back to the federal government and gave back to the state government, right? So at what point is it libertarian to award a corporation for acting on behalf of the government? Like what reason is there? I mean, the tax revenue that they generate for Florida, of course, the tax revenue and the money they give back to the state is great, right? I'm sure that's great for the economy. That's great for citizens. That's great for the state government and things like that. But we are giving special privileges to a corporation and basically giving them their own self-government because they're acting as a branch on behalf of the state and the federal government. So how libertarian is it really to award a corporation for working about the very thing that we want to shrink? It's a strange idea to me, and I've seen plenty of criticisms, and I understand it. Attacking private companies and attacking private corporations is something that a lot of libertarians are against, and overall I'm against it too. But it's really hard for me to feel sorry for a corporation that's acted on behalf of the government for so long, and now that they have a governor who is saying, "Hey, you're going to try to control my government. You're going to try to, you've acted on behalf of us for so long. They're going to try to fight back." or, well, we're going to take your privileges away. The privileges that this government awards you for acting on behalf of us anyway. So at what point are we really going to say that it's anti-libertarian or anti-liberty when the corporation itself has basically been a branch of the very thing that me and you as libertarians, and me as a Republican libertarian especially, fight against every day? I fight against the expansion of federal government power every day. To me, the branch that Disney created allowed that expansion either of the Florida government or the federal government for so long. So now their privileges are being taken away, and they're shrinking. So really, in a sort of vacuumized idea, is it shrinking the government from not allowing this corporation to act on behalf of government policies anymore? They were trying to do it with like you said, with the Don't Say Gay bill. So now are they trying? Is Florida attempting to shrink a branch that they had really created, a monster that they created themselves? So are we really going to say it's anti-liberty or anti-libertarian when Disney was just a arm of the state government as it was already?
There you go. Well, and Kenny, that's exactly why I wanted you to kind of give this perspective, because this is the ultimate outcome of this corporatist approach to governance that we've had over the past. I think it really has reared its ugly head over the past 70, 80 years, really since the end of 1945, World War II, where the military-industrial complex really blew up, and it opened the doors for a lot of this in bed, with the government. Now, granted, have we seen this throughout history? Of course, big oil. I mean, that you go through the different the barons and the different cities and stuff who basically would run their own little pseudo governments outside, using their threat of force, which inevitably the government will ultimately use at the end of the day as well. But this is going to be the debate and the conversation I think we're going to see moving forward from the economic relationship between state and corporation. And we have to ask the question too, Kenny, how much are these organizations truly private companies? And this conversation's been happening a lot with Twitter right now, right? You see who's one of the controlling interests in one of the largest stakes at Twitter? It's a Saudi prince.
Right.
Wait, hold on, time out. What? And now all of a sudden, if we're seeing this be the conversation, well, Twitter is a private company owned by governments. That's not how this works. It's the old Geico commercial. It's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. But I think right now, Kenny, this is definitely going to be the conversation we're going to be seeing happening across the board. It's important for us to continue having this conversation. And I also think it's important for us to make sure we're just being cautious, right? Both in terms of who we're bringing in as representative of our ideas and our principles, but also when we get into office, what are we doing with the power that has been there before? And are we going to be careful to make sure it's not used against us in the future once we've set new precedences? So just things to keep in mind, folks. But with that being said, Kenny, we are unfortunately already hard pressed for time. So we want folks to go ahead and make sure if they want to keep the conversation going, they can easily do so. So folks, where can they go ahead and find you, Kenny, on social media? And also check out your awesome work you've been writing recently.
Yeah, y'all can follow me at KD Cody 10 on Twitter, Kenny Cody on Facebook. Y'all can add me, and I'll post some articles there. Instagram, same way. I write at Town Hall and Newsmax for right now. Chairman of the Republican Party. You all can just find me. I think I've got a muck rack, one of those article archives or whatever. You can go back and look at any piece that I've pretty much ever written. You can go on muck rack and find any of my pieces, and I encourage you all to keep out for new stuff coming.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, there's your call to action for today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'll give you another call to action. Why not? Please go ahead and give it a share. When you do, please give yours truly a tag at B Nichols Liberty. Also, by the way, did you know that our shop over at Proud Libertarian, we're going to be getting rid of a few items there. You're going to go into the vault for the foreseeable future, including our Don't Nuke Me Bro Joe Biden t-shirt. Make sure you grab yours before it's gone. But with that being said, it's Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Kenny Cody. We'll see you next week.
For listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.